Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakio, and the title of today's talk is Stop Watching the News. Well, before we get into that, I'll remind you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. Also, if you want to do a deep dive into Buddhist practice, check out my book, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. There's a link to a sample chapter of the book in the description for this talk, and it can be purchased on Amazon. So when Buddha was giving instructions to his followers on things they could do in order to move along the Buddhist path more quickly, he gave one teaching called Dhamma Viraga, which translates to the teaching of dispassion. And very simply, the teaching stated that we should look at the karma of our actions and we should withdraw from the things that cause harm to ourselves or others. And the way we do this was simply by looking at our actions very closely. What happens when I kill, when I lie, when I steal, when I abuse intoxicants, when I abuse sexuality? And as we engage in these contemplations and we see the harm and the negativity associated with these things, we convince ourselves through logic and reason that I just don't want to live that way anymore. That's not for me. And some of you may have noticed that what I just recently referenced was the 5 lay precepts that people take when they decide to follow the Buddhist path. So that the 5 lay precepts is an example of Dhamma Viraga. We see these things we do that cause harm to ourselves and others. We develop dispassion towards them, and we stop doing it. But the teaching doesn't stop there. It can be applied to anything in our lives. But it's important to note, oftentimes when people hear this word, viraga, or dispassion, they think that we as Buddhists should be robbed of pathos, that we should not have emotions, that we should not feel anything, that we should never be happy or sad as a result of the things that happen in our lives. And that's simply not true, actually quite the opposite. Buddha experienced sadness when his homeland was invaded by a rival clan, and sometimes he experienced anger when his monks did not live up to their vows. So the teaching isn't about not having emotions, rather it's about using those emotions to better understand what's happening in our world. If something makes us fearful, if it makes us angry, if it makes us sad, maybe that's not something we should engage in. Not always. Sometimes these emotions are just a natural part of life and we have to accept them and we have to work with them. But there are times when it's better to withdraw. And we use our own inner wisdom to make that decision for ourselves. Which brings us to the title of this talk, Don't Watch the News. I've received a lot of communication from people who are asking what is something simple, easy, and effective that I can do to help myself live a happier, more calm life as we live through this pandemic together. And there are many traditional Buddhist practices, meditative breathing, chanting, right mindfulness, which I've discussed in other videos, but one really simple thing is to simply stop watching the news. This is something I've done in my own life, and it's been very effective because what I've found is that the news cycle isn't meant to inform us any longer. Rather, it's meant to make us feel anger, sadness, frustration, fear. And when we feel these emotions and we internalize them, we end up either taking that out on ourselves and we engage in unhealthy practices, or we take them out on the people around us. So after seeing the karma of the action watching the news, I made the decision to stop. And that may seem strange to some people because we need to be informed, but what I've found is that anything that I need to know about always gets to me somehow, or their friend or a family member will let me know through a call or email or a text message, or something will pop up on my phone, one of those emergency text messages from the government, or maybe I'll just see a stray headline as I'm perusing social media. But by choosing to not watch the news networks that make their money by causing us again to feel fearful or angry or sad, my life has become a lot calmer. And I didn't even have to meditate for an hour. So I would encourage you to do that as well. Just really check in with your body, check in with your mind, see what it feels like when you engage in this practice of watching the news. Is this something you should continue doing, or is this something you should practice viraga or dispassion towards and withdraw? And maybe it's not a complete withdrawal. Maybe you just reduce how much news you watch. So instead of watching it all day, you watch 1 hour. And then once you have the major headlines, you go outside or you spend time with your family. Or maybe you do what I do and you withdraw altogether. Again, it's completely up to you and your own inner wisdom. But I encourage you to check in with yourself, look at your emotions, and then figure out what's best for you and the people around you. So that's talk for today. I hope it was helpful. If you'd like to read articles I've written about Buddhist practice, you can do that at my blog, The Same Old Zen. Link for that is in the description for this talk. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I love hearing from you guys, and I promise I'll respond. So, until next time, Amitabha.